and thank you also to my honourable friend and neighbour from Dartford for securing this important debate. Now, as Sadiq Khan shows in London, Labour in power delivers. These are not my words, but the words of the Leader of the Opposition from April this year. But they do feel very appropriate given today's debate on ULEZ and because it is obviously pantomime season after all. And my honourable friend from Alperton just highlighted some highlights from the Mayor's time in power. He's mentioned Crossrail, the record on the Metropolitan Police and the Fire Brigade. But sticking to the subject of ULEZ, Mr Hosey, as you've asked, this is the last outrageous tax raid on drivers now to London. We've already had the Mayor's share of council tax increased by 43% since he entered office and is expected to rise to above £400 next year. But this ULEZ raise and this tax raise on people and drivers now to London and the neighbouring counties will hammer families, small businesses and emergency service workers with bills of around £4,500 a year to drive. And I would like to highlight that I'm not sure even the champagne socialists in North London could afford this bill, Mr Chairman. So if this shows what Labour in power delivers, then this really is the nightmare before Christmas for the British public. As we have heard from honourable colleagues already today, the ULEZ expansion was overwhelmingly opposed by the public, despite the consultation clearly being skewed to try and give TfL and the Mayor the answers they were looking for. It has also raised a number of serious issues and questions, including the process and powers being used by the Mayor to push this through, which I hope the Minister will look closely at again. Firstly, the questions over whether the Mayor has the mandate to do this, given it was not in his manifesto, as we've just heard, and the impact of the expansion will also be felt outside the Greater London boundaries, alongside the fact that local authorities have a statutory duties over air quality and several boroughs are opposed to this policy. And lastly, as highlighted already, the proposals were overwhelmingly rejected in the consultation by around 70 to 80% of people out of London. And it's clear to see why people are so angry and furious about this decision, especially with the current cost of living challenges. In Bexley alone, the area that I'm proud to serve, around 30,000 vehicles will be directly impacted, hammering businesses, families and key workers with those bills of £12.50 a day or £4,500 a year. And it gives, by introducing it in August, it gives hardly any time to switch vehicles. Barely a day goes by when a constituent doesn't stop me in the street and highlight how ULEZ will impact them. Pensioners who rarely drive but need their car to go shopping or to hospital appointments. Families who need to drop their kids to different schools each morning before going to work. Tradesmen that need their vans for their tools and to get to jobs. And shops on the boundary who fear customers will stop coming into Greater London from the likes of Dartford because of the ULEZ charge.
Will you give way?
Yes.
The honourable member whether he supports the investment in the extra 1 million kilometres of bus network in outer London and the investment of £110 million on scrappage to get rid of the 15% more polluting cars or not?
Well, I'll happily answer the honourable member's question because actually our buses have been cut in out of London, and if you'd checked Bexley's record, you'll have seen that they've been cut, the bus routes. And I'll come on to the scrappage schemes to cover the exact point that you're trying to make there. So alongside the clearly negative impact on businesses and hard-working families in my area, it is also important to highlight that over 50% of blue light workers in London live outside the capital, and 90% of care workers nationally use their own cars for work. So this ULEZ expansion will create many knock-on issues for the emergency services in the likes of Bexley, including the doubling of charges, as we've heard, for those working nights, which was also highlighted in the Telegraph a few weeks ago. It will also negatively impact patients, with my local hospital, Queen Mary Sidcup, sharing a number of services and nurses with the likes of Dartford. These are all issues that I don't believe, Mr Chairman, have been thought through properly, as the Mayor desperately seeks to fill the black hole in TfL's finances that he has created. Bexley does not have the underground, and like many other London boroughs, does not have the same transport options and connectivity as central London does. So it is extremely unfair the Mayor of London is proposing plans for expansion. In recent years, we've also, as I've just said, had our bus and other services cut by the Mayor of London. And I note that in his so-called reinvestment plans, there is nothing that will help areas like Bexley and in the South East. The scrappage scheme announced by the Mayor also does not even come close to matching demand or the costs and practical issues of buying a new vehicle. And the fact he is forecast to spend double, at roughly £250 million of taxpayers' money to install cameras to find people, highlights again how this policy is designed to raise money rather than improve air quality. A point supported by the fact that the Mayor's own independent impact report highlights a negligible impact on improving air quality in outer London areas like mine, which are very different to central London and have already seen an improvement in air quality. For example, Bexley Council, in its consultation response to the Mayor, highlighted that air quality has been improving already and was one of 11 boroughs that recorded no population exceeding air quality thresholds. The government has also brought forward its own plans and investment to improve air quality, with £880 million of support for local authorities to take immediate steps to reduce nitrogen dioxide and £2 billion of investment in cycling and walking over the course of this Parliament, the largest ever boost for active trouble. If the Mayor of London wanted to help tackle air pollution, rather than raise money, further investment should be made to support people with the transition to electric vehicles, including the installation of more electric vehicle charging points and leading by example with TfL's own bus fleet. With traffic being highlighted as one of the main causes of air pollution, there also needs to be a review into the impact of his road closures on increasing traffic and potentially emissions across London, which have again, I'm sure by coincidence, also raised millions in fines for Labour councils in the capital. And dare I even mention the Silvertown Tunnel, which will likely encourage more vehicles to drive through South East and East London and appears to be completely inconsistent with the Mayor's so-called championing of air quality. So in summing up, Mr Jose, I urge the Minister again to do everything in his and the government's power to stop this disastrous ULEZ policy, which will hammer families, businesses and the emergency services in the likes of Bexley, Greater London and neighbouring counties. As I and other colleagues have highlighted today, the impact of ULEZ will go much further than the London boundaries, and once the cameras are installed, will likely lead to further taxes on drivers that I believe will be inconsistent with national transport policy. So I ask the Minister and Government to please review this situation urgently. And if the Mayor of London is listening, I call on him to stop the virtue signalling and worrying about his book sales, and to put hard-working Londoners first by U-turning on this tax raid on drivers in Greater London. And if he doesn't, then it's clearly time for this failing son of a bus driver to get off at the next stop before calls for the Mayor to get scrapped get even louder. Thank you, Mr Chairman.